Rastafari is a relatively young religion, yet its influence on music, pop culture, politics, and social justice makes it a faith system that has had a global impact despite having relatively few followers, an estimated 1 million worldwide. But have you ever wondered how it all started? Leonard Percival Howell was a pivotal figure in the birth of the Rastafari movement. Born into an Anglican family on June 16, 1898, in Clarendon, Jamaica, Howell was among the earliest preachers of this faith and often regarded as the First Rasta. In 1933, Howell started preaching about the crowning of Ras Tafari Makonnen as Emperor Haile Selassie of Ethiopia, declaring him the Messiah returned to earth. His sermons ignited controversy, leading to his arrest and a 2-year imprisonment for conduct, inciting people to rebel against the authority of the state. Despite this, or perhaps because of it, the Rastafari movement flourished. Throughout his life, Howell found himself at odds with every facet of the Jamaican establishment, from planters and trade unions to churches and colonial authorities. His message, deeply rooted in anti-colonialism and black empowerment, threatened the status quo, prompting efforts to suppress his influence. Yet, his call for black people to assert their identity resonated not just in Jamaica, but globally, echoing across the African diaspora. Howell's vision led him to establish Pinnacle, a commune in St. Catherine Parish, which became a sanctuary for Rastafari followers and a symbol of the movement. Unlike many of his followers, Howell never adopted the practice of wearing dreadlocks, yet his leadership helped solidify the global presence of the Rastafari faith. He was the eldest of 10 children. His father, Charles Theophilus Howell, worked as a peasant cultivator and tailor, while his mother, Clementina Bennett, was an agricultural laborer. During the First World War, Howell served as a seaman and was part of a Jamaican contingent sent to Panama. Before settling temporarily in Panama in 1918, he traveled multiple times between New York City and Panama. It was in New York, particularly in Harlem, where he first confronted his identity as a black man. Here, he met and joined Marcus Garvey's Universal Negro Improvement Association, influenced by Garvey's revolutionary leadership. Howell spent approximately 20 years of his early life abroad, during which he was arrested and imprisoned for his association with the Universal Negro Improvement Association. The organization's pro-black messages were seen as threatening. After migrating between Panama and the United States, he was eventually deported back to Jamaica in December 1932 at the age of 34, primarily due to his involvement with the Universal Negro Improvement Association, which the US government viewed as a threat because of its advocacy for black power and anti-colonialism. Upon his return to Jamaica, Howell decided to leave his family home and advocate for the Rastafari movement. This decision stemmed from a conflict with his family, presumably over his controversial beliefs in the divine nature of Haile Selassie. Leonard Howell's initial public declaration of Haile Selassie's divinity occurred in January 1933. This first open proclamation, asserting the Emperor of Ethiopia as the incarnation of God, took place at Redemption Ground in Kingston, but failed to attract converts. In February 1933, Howell moved his gatherings to the southeastern parish of St. Thomas. By April 18th, he spoke to approximately 200 people at a meeting in Trinityville, St. Thomas. Police monitored the event, considering it to be of a seditious nature. Despite their concerns, authorities opted not to press charges against Howell to avoid drawing further attention to his cause, choosing instead to keep a close watch on his activities. Howell and his followers revered Emperor Selassie as the Black Messiah, a divine figure prophesied in the Bible. Howell regarded the emperor's grand coronation, bolstered by claims of Selassie's descent from King David, King Solomon, and the Queen of Sheba, partly derived from the medieval Ethiopian text, Kebra Nagast, as the fulfillment of this prophecy. The emperor's ascent was seen as a validation of Howell's profound assertions. Howell's teachings often provided a backdrop of Ethiopia's people, land, and sovereignty, depicting it as an unchanged territory inhabited by original primitive Christian people, ruled directly by a king from the lineage of King David. He idealized Ethiopia in his sermons, describing it as a land of unparalleled people and a perfect language, the only uncorrupted language on earth. Howell highlighted the advent of a new civilization anchored in the glory and power of Selassie, the supreme black king. He instructed his followers to venerate the Ethiopian emperor as the supreme deity over all humanity. According to Howell, Ethiopia preserved the essential truths about good character, social order, manhood, and womanhood, which were now being revealed for all to see. He preached that Ethiopian culture was poised to supplant the hegemonic Anglo-Saxon forces that had long subjugated Africans. Among his followers, Howell was referred to as Gigi Marag, a name he used to distinguish his mystical, ritualistic identity from his secular one. The name is believed to be derived from three Hindi words, Gyan, which means wisdom, Gun, which means virtue or talent, and Guru, the teacher. In Hindi, Mara means great kings or king of kings. In September 1933, during a meeting at Port Morant, St. Thomas, Howell initiated the gathering with hymn singing. He reportedly taunted clergy from other religious denominations present and advised attendees against going to church, claiming that ministers were liars. He also vehemently criticized the history of slavery, asserting that the white man stole Africa from the Africans and that black people should consider Africa their home, not Jamaica. Howell's praise for Emperor Selassie was accompanied by a clear call for black supremacy as a means to combat colonialism and reject white oppression. Occasionally, he would lead his congregants in singing "God Save the King," referring to Selassie. Howell's doctrine placed blackness as morally superior to whiteness, challenging white colonial ideologies. Remembered as a charismatic and authoritarian leader, Howell genuinely cared for his followers' well-being. In 1939, he founded the Ethiopian Salvation Society with the primary objective of using collective savings to improve its members' lives. The Ethiopian Salvation Society also aimed to propagate the good news about salvation and Christianity, emphasizing self-help and good citizenship. These secondary aims were expressly stated to protect the organization from accusations of promoting sedition. Despite this, in 1940, the Jamaican governor banned an Ethiopian Salvation Society meeting due to the resentment it was generating and its international scope. Howell also played a mentoring role within the growing Rastafarian community. His bold, generous personality, enriched by his extensive travels, made him especially influential. Howell was instrumental in forging connections with other black groups like the Afro-Anglican Constructive Gathly and the Universal Negro Improvement Association, and collaborated with figures like Marcus Garvey and George Padmore. Howell's advocacy for identification with Africa stood in stark contrast to the Jamaican Creole nationalism promoted by contemporaries like Bustamante and Manley. He preached to both the working class and the peasantry, striving to unite disenfranchised black individuals to overcome colonial oppression. Howell viewed Jamaica's 1962 independence, which maintained ties with Great Britain, as a significant disappointment, having advocated for complete separation from Britain. In January 1934, Howell and Robert Hines were arrested and charged with sedition following a meeting of 300 people at Seaforth St. Thomas on December 10, 1933. Howell stood trial for sedition on March 13, 1934, pleading not guilty to charges of expressing hatred for the Jamaican government and the King of England and disturbing the public peace. During his defense, he famously declared Selassie as the Messiah returned to earth, using a photograph of the emperor as evidence. He was sentenced to 2 years in prison by the Chief Justice Robert William Lyle Grant. Later, in 1938, Howell was committed to the Bellevue Asylum in Kingston, deemed insane due to inflammatory statements. In a publication, released while he was incarcerated, he labeled the Roman Catholic Pope as Satan the Devil and implied a declaration of war against colonialism and white supremacy, advocating for black supremacy. He also objected to local religious systems like revivalism. Howell was notably the most incarcerated among the pioneers of the Rastafari movement due to his outspoken teachings and challenges to international white supremacy, prompting significant re-evaluation of identity and social mobilization in Jamaica and beyond. Following his release from prison for his teachings and his denunciation of colonial rule, Howell established the first Rastafarian village in Jamaica at Sligoville, St. Catherine, in 1940. Named Pinnacle for its high hilltop elevation, it was symbolically located in the first free village set up to house former slaves in Jamaica. Pinnacle became one of the country's first self-sustaining communities, where residents met their needs independently of external resources. Some describe Pinnacle as a commune where Howell's form of socialism was practiced. Shortly after its foundation, other similar Rastafarian communities emerged across the country. Pinnacle was particularly noted for the cultivation of marijuana, which holds religious significance for Rastafarians. In efforts to dismantle Howell and his followers, police repeatedly raided Howell's Pinnacle community, labeling it a communist experiment in 1941. Just 1 year after the settlement was established, government forces infiltrated it, arresting many of Howell's followers. Although Howell initially evaded arrest, he was eventually captured and once again tried for sedition, resulting in an additional 2-year imprisonment. Upon his release in 1943, he returned to Pinnacle, this time hiring guards and bringing in watchdogs to protect the community from future attacks. The police conducted several more raids on Pinnacle in the 1950s. In 1954, militia invaded the community and nearly destroyed the village completely. Despite the extensive damage, settlers returned, though the settlement never regained its former vibrancy. During a final raid in 1958, police completely cleared out the remaining residents. Despite its ultimate destruction, the legacy of Pinnacle became legendary, inspiring other settlements around the country that became known as miniature pinnacles. Some claim that Howell disappeared from public view between 1958 and 1960, withdrawing from his role as a Rastafarian leader. However, historians who have studied his life challenge accounts that he was neither seen nor heard from during this period until his death in 1981. Despite the final major raid on Pinnacle and Howell's subsequent confinement in a mental asylum, he reportedly continued his leadership within the Pinnacle community and maintained his role as a foundational figure in the Rastafari movement. This is evidenced by his involvement as a defendant in several cases at the Home Circuit Court in Kingston, which concerned disputes over his ownership of Pinnacle. Today, Howell is celebrated as a pioneer of the Rastafarian movement. In recognition of his enduring values and his relentless battle against colonial authority, he is also regarded as a leader in Pan-Africanism. To preserve his legacy, the Leonard P. Howell Foundation was established to perpetuate and honor the memory of Leonard P. Howell. The foundation advocates for the restoration of part of the Pinnacle property to establish it as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, an international center for Rastafarian worship and research, and a monument to honor the vision and leadership of Leonard Percival Howell. Tragically, Leonard Howell's life ended on January 23, 1981, after a brutal attack months earlier in Tredegar Park, not far from his beloved Pinnacle. He was 83. Despite enduring severe persecution, Howell's legacy as a champion of anti-colonialism and a true hero of the Rastafari movement, remains influential. In a poignant twist of fate, the same government that once persecuted him honoured him posthumously in 2022 with an Order of Distinction, acknowledging his indelible impact on both national and global scales. Thank you all for watching this video. If you enjoyed our content and would like to see more from Unfiltered Reality TV, don't forget to hit the like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe to our channel.